why is it that the blacks, I'm going to put it in quotes, the blacks who ascend to the highest echelon of national political office aren't, I was almost going to say, really black? That's wrong. They are elective black. They opted in. They had choices. They opted in. They, to a certain degree, are choosing blackness, performing blackness.
And I think I'm going to do a piece about this. This ridiculous outcry every time she code switches. So she's in front of an audience with black people in it, or it's going to happen with Southern people in it, and she'll drop an R at the end of a word, for instead of for. She has, she grew up as a black girl and then black woman. She has a black American capability.
Did she grow up as a black girl?
She did. She played with black kids in Oakland.
No, I mean, okay.
When she was growing up, that would have been the whole sense that she had of what's funny, of what you do with your vowels, of the way you move, of your relationship.
I thought she went to high school in Toronto, and
she spent some time there, but formative years in terms of how you learn what you are in the world. She grew up around black kids, and then she went to Howard, and that's important. You go to an HBCU. And often, however you grew up, it makes you become more like the people who you were around. I know this from my own sister, frankly. I don't think she would mind hearing this. She and I actually grew up blacker than many people would think. But when Holly went to Spelman, after even the first 6 months of Spelman, there were, of course, I'm always listening for this, but there were language things, there were things of gesture, there was politics. She was immersed in 24/7 blackness in a way that I never was because I didn't go to Morehouse. Well, Kamala went to Howard, and she was, unlike my sister, Kamala was in a sorority. That is a bonding experience with women, and I think both of us know what the black sororities mean. So yeah, she's a black lady. The South Asian part is ancillary. I think she would say the same thing, at least in private. She's black. Yeah, I don't think, and that means she's going to code switch. Most black people have these two poles that they switch between. She's going to do that to identify with audiences. And there are people online who instantly, how dare she condescend to the audience by talking blackly like that? She's going to do it over and over. And it's time for us to get over it and stop making fun of her for it. Obama went through the same thing on that. But she's going to do it more, I can tell.
Why is it, let me ask you this, why is it that the blacks, quote unquote, I'm going to put it in quotes, the blacks who ascend to the highest echelon of national political office aren't, I was almost going to say, really black? That's wrong. I'm not.
But everybody's thinking it, yeah.
That's what Donald Trump said to the National Association of Black Journalists in Chicago a week ago. That's not what I'm saying. But they are elective black. They opted in. They had choices. They opted in. They, to a certain degree, are choosing blackness and, performing blackness. Something tells me Obama spent some time in the mirror practicing.
I think he did.
When he
more
was
or less.
College or law school or whatever. Or maybe it was even earlier. And something tells me that the choices that Kamala Harris made that you just got through enumerating that are authenticators of her blackness were, deliberate, that there were to a certain degree a construction project here about building a persona. Not necessarily opportunistically. If I'm black, then I'll have more opportunities or anything like that. It could be stylistically and, aesthetically and things like that. This is the kind of way I want to walk in the world. Let me order my steps accordingly. But what I want to ask is it that America can't take you if you're too black? That the first blacks to do these amazing things have to kind of be quasi-black?
No, and I think it's important.
Pseudo-black?
This is the question. Are we talking about Barack Obama and Kamala Harris and that's it? Because if we're only talking about them, then and maybe you add Colin Powell, but that's a whole different story. I think we're talking about...
Well, he was never nominated.
Right.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Right. I think we're talking about what might be a coincidence, because try this as a thought experiment. Okay, you can't be too black to come up high. Everybody would love that story. But let's just roll the tape again. Let's say that Ketanji Jackson, Justice Ketanji Jackson, let's say that she was one of the people who had run. Somebody like her, somebody who looks like her, somebody with her history. Would Joe Biden not have picked her because she's too brown and she's a native born black person and she isn't, kind of mixed and hybrid and Hawaii and all of that? I say no. I think that he could easily have happened to have picked somebody who wasn't a mixture like Kamala. It's just that wasn't in the mix.
Oh, like Stacey Abrams or somebody.
For example, would he not have picked Stacey Abrams? No, I think that the idea that the color is determining this might have gotten old. Now, Barack Obama, here he is. He's quote unquote not really black. Would say Tim Scott, who had a little more edge and had a little more star power, would he not have gotten in 2008 because he's just chocolate brown and there's no hybridicity? I think even in 2008, if it had been the right person, they would have gotten in. We may be dealing with coincidence here, especially now. 2008 was now 700 years ago. Today, I think it could be a chocolate brown person who both of whose parents were born in St. Louis. I think that could happen now if they had star power. But I know a lot of people of a certain stripe are going to say no, no, no. It's their mulatto quality is what has gotten them in through the door. Good story. It'd be good in an opera. Good for a novel. Edna Ferber would have written it very well. But no, I don't think that's what's going on today.
This is not my argument. This is one of our three named friends' arguments, but let me see if I can channel it. It's that a heavily Negroid featured candidate would trigger subliminal resistance in critical parts of the electorate in the swing states and so forth that would then have to be overcome, and that's just a burden that we don't need. And that then redounds to the benefit of those of the disadvantaged group whose features, skin color, shape of nose, lips, too Negroid would just be a turnoff to too many people, and they never get past the gate. They never get into the inner circle where they could be considered for that kind of thing. And that challenges us to think of heavily Negroid featured politicians who have been very successful at the national level. And I'm hard pressed to name one. Martin Luther King Jr. The late, great Martin Luther King Jr.
I think
I'm sorry.
No, somebody's probably, that's already been written, and I'm sure somebody's writing it now. Yeah, Negroid features, subliminal, blah, 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 blah. Great story. And let's see where Stacey Abrams is in 10 years. And, let's see. And let's see how plausible it is that what held her back was that she had, quote unquote, Negroid features. And so it's the same thing that held back Fannie Lou Hamer. Right. Yeah. I think that it may have changed. And, Barack Obama had a very, quote unquote, black looking wife, and that didn't seem to hold anybody back. It would just require that somebody get to a certain point who has a certain star power. Donna Brazile, for example. I mean, she's not dark, but Donna Brazile, I think, if the dice had rolled differently, could have wound up in a certain place 15 years ago. But that just didn't happen to happen. Condoleezza Rice, I would say that she has black features, and I think she got to a certain point. If Condoleezza Rice chose to run for president right now, I think she'd get quite high up, despite the fact that she does not have a mulatto history. So I don't know. I think it's changed. I think that what you're saying, what you're quoting from the three named people, was certainly true back in the day, but this is not that day. Is my sense of it. Herman Cain. I mean,
oh yeah, Herman Cain.
Kind of bit of a clown, if you ask me, but still, he was on his way. Of course, that's on the wrong side, but still, you might want to say that the racist Republicans, but they didn't seem to think so when it came to him.
You mentioned Justice Jackson. I'm thinking of Justice Thomas, whose Negroid features are very prominent, and I wonder whether or not his blackness has indirectly, subconsciously, subliminally contributed to some of the antipathy toward him in some quarters. But that's going down a rabbit hole, isn't it?